How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Farmville, Virginia. A very, very small town. I think the population is about 8,000 people roughly. So it's a tiny town. Look right behind me. See that green fence? You can see that there? Right there is a house here in Farmville. And in that house took place some of the most brutal murders you'll ever hear about. This story is brutal. It's kind of known as the Farmville murders or the Syko Sam murders. Probably best to keep it known as the Farmville murders because Syko Sam is the nickname of the perpetrator, Richard Samuel McCroskey, otherwise known as Syko Sam, because he was a rapper. And so we'll call him Richard because he likes to be called Syko Sam still. And I'm just here in this little park right beside. We're going to go take a look at the house. I'm going to insert some clips I've already driven by and taking some footage of it. It's a long way to get here. Farmville is not, there's not much else around for a while. I mean, there's tiny towns. I'm not trying to be insulting towards the town or the people that live here. I never want to do that because it's home to people. And it's a beautiful little town. It's a beautiful area. Virginia is gorgeous. But it has, you know, like every city, every small town, some darkness to it. Now, before I continue, I should say, oh, somebody just came home to that house that I was just at. Huh. It's going to make getting photographs a little more difficult, or video, but I've got some. Now, Syko Sam dabbled in horrorcore. Now, if you don't know what horrorcore is, it's a subgenre of rap and hip-hop. And while it's not necessarily my thing, it's a lot of people's thing. It's heavy beats with graphic imagery of murder, rape, cannibalism, satanic things, you name it. Now, rappers like Insane Clown Posse and even Eminem, who is of course my favorite, get listed under horrorcore. It's because of the lyrics more, and this music's not exactly the same, but there's, you know, elements of it to their music. But there's a ton of other horrorcore artists, and let's just say it's not for everyone. But there's a big community of horrorcore fans online, and back 2009 is when these occurred. A lot of them got together on MySpace and found kinship and friendship. Other people who like this type of music, and lots of times they're kind of outcasts, and or they feel like outcasts, so they have a community, and that's nice. So Emma Niederbrock was 16 years old, living in this house right here, and she was being homeschooled by her mother Debra, and she found a community of horrorcore fans like herself online, and this one guy in California, he took a liking to her and she took a liking to him. Now I'm just going to sit here. It's very, well, maybe not sit, maybe just stand. Done a lot of research on this story. And essentially they really hit off and started a relationship. Now they never met, right? So her parents were divorced. Her parents, Mark and Debra, were divorced, but they indulged her in her love of horrorcore because at least she'd found something, and they thought if they tried to steer her away from it, that would drive her away from them. So, good parents trying to, you know, they took her to concerts and things, and then there was a concert coming up in Michigan, a festival, and so she had Richard fly in. He was 19 or 20, a little bit older. She was 16. And her friend Melanie, who lived over in West Virginia, Melanie Wells, she came. They all stayed at the house. Now, Melanie came earlier, and they went to pick up Richard at the airport, the Richmond airport. And when he got off the airplane, he was not what Emma was expecting. Not at all. He was shuffling his feet, talking nervously, mumbling, and just wasn't this outgoing, charismatic guy that she had met online. So right past those houses where we're looking at the house. It's right there. And he stayed for 6 days before the concert. Then they made the drive from Farmville to Michigan with her parents and Melanie. Now, there's discrepancies at the concert about how he was acting. Apparently, when the show wasn't going on, he was very withdrawn and his usual, mopey self. But also, when the bands were playing, he was really into it, getting into it. And he was making out with another girl, is what I've heard. And she was flirting with other boys, both watching each other and not seeming to care. But that's where the story gets a little complicated. I've heard that story, but when you hear what happens afterwards, that doesn't make much sense. So they came back to the house right there, and, well, Richard Samuel got a maul, which is I had to look it up. It sounds like a medieval instrument, but it's a wood-splitting axe. Looks like this. And he murdered Melanie Wells first. She was asleep on the couch. Then he murdered the mother, Debra, upstairs. And then Emma in her downstairs bedroom. 3 days he sat with the bodies. He recorded footage of him with the bodies confessing to the crimes, saying he knows he's going to have to pay one day. And then Melanie Wells' mother was getting very, very, very worried. She hadn't heard from her daughter. Now, there's a man named Syko who runs like the Horrorcore fan community. He's an artist and a producer. So she got in contact with him because he ran, like I said, a label, Serial Killing Records, I believe. And she managed to get in touch with him because he knew Emma, he knew Richard, he knew Melanie. He knew all of them because they were part of his Apostles, which is like a street army kind of that goes out and puts up, flyers and hands out stuff about the band, that sort of thing. And he seems like a good dude from everything I've read about him. And, people trying to call him Charles Manson type and sort of thing, that he's a ringleader. But no, he's an artist. He's a music producer. It's crazy. She got in touch with him, and he was kind of thinking it was strange that Melanie hadn't returned any phone calls. So between the two of them, the police did come out here to the house, and Richard convinced them that no, that Melanie and Emma were not here. And then Syko heard online from another fan of his that Richard had confessed to killing people in the house. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself because the father of Emma, Mark Niederbrock, they were divorced, so he lived a couple towns over, and he came here to this house to check on them because he hadn't heard from them either. And Melanie's mother had gotten a hold of him, and he came and checked on them, and, well, Richard let him in and then attacked him from behind with the same weapon, killing him. So, a few days went by. Like I said, Richard sat with the bodies in this house. And finally, the police came, but Richard had already left. They went in the house, they discovered 4 bodies. 3 of them in advanced states of decomposition. Richard had fled, and he had taken Mark's car, the father's car. Now, he didn't get very far because not only was he a bad rapper, and I'm not saying that to be petty, I just think that, I've loved hip-hop and rap for 30 years. I think I don't know much about anything, but I think I'm allowed to make a few critiques when it comes to hip-hop, and he sucked. And he still has fans to this day. He was never popular. He wasn't like a popular rapper. He just rapped. He wanted to be a rapper, but even the label guy, Syko, said, no, you don't have what it takes. But he still has fans of his music and his writing and stuff to this day. All their MySpace pages they're not active, but you can still view them. But he wasn't a good driver either, so he crashed the car into a ditch. And when the police came, he had no license. It wasn't his car. But he was just issued a citation. How crazy is that? They didn't know at the time that he was wanted for murder or anything. the police that found him on the side of the road. But they just let him go. I think it's weird that you've no license and you're not driving your own car and you crash it and then citation, you get to leave with the car. But he drove off with the car. He ditched it at a convenience store, called a cab. So between a cab and a tow truck driver, they both took him to the Richmond airport. And apparently he stunk. He stunk like death. That's what they both have said. And then he was arrested at the Richmond airport by airport security, because by this time the police had one suspect in mind. They knew where he was headed. This kid was not a master criminal at all, and he was asleep in the baggage area. And he was arrested. And the baggage, airport security said that when they arrived went up to him in the baggage department where he was sleeping, that they could smell him before they even saw him. There was this overwhelming smell. He had no money to book an earlier flight, so he was from California, so he was waiting to go back to California. Let's go take a look at the house. I'll tell you what happened to Richard afterwards. I think I told most of the story of how it happened. It's just a brutal 4 quadruple murder slayings here in this house, and it's very, very tragic. It's crossed over into pop culture zeitgeist somewhat because of the music, and it was a huge story for a while. Police concluded the victims died from blunt force trauma to the head. McCroskey did not initially cooperate with police after his arrest. When asked about the possible motive, Police Sergeant Andy Ellington from Farmville, Virginia, said McCroskey said, "Jesus told me to do it." Attorneys say this crime had nothing to do with the horrorcore music McCroskey was into. Instead, he was angry his relationship with Emma Niederbrock had soured. The Commonwealth's attorney said McCroskey told him the other 3 were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. On September 20th, 2010, McCroskey pled guilty to the 4 murders. Although facing the death penalty, he was sentenced to life in prison. County Attorney James Ennis said that the victims' families supported his decision to reach a plea agreement instead of going to trial and seeking the death penalty. On his way out of the courthouse, Richard Syko Sam McCroskey smirked as he walked toward a van waiting to take him back to jail. But his attorney at the time said McCroskey isn't proud of what he did. Quote, "I think it's both a relief and he's thinking about the rest of his life." Unquote. Now, unfortunately, there's no way for me to pay my respects to Emma, Melanie, and Debra because their graves are not listed anywhere and I can't find them. The only grave I can find is Mark, the father, who is the pastor of a church, and he's buried in the cemetery beside the church. So we're going to go over there now and pay our respects. And a truck just went by and just says Farmville, Virginia on it. It's just weird to see that because I've been thinking about coming here and doing this story for about 3 years. And I'm finally here and the house is right there. It's very bizarre. Yeah. It's a tragic story. And as always, I hope he's not having a very good time of it in prison. I hope he's rotting away. But you never know what's going on in prisons. You never know. Well, we get TV, radio, all that sort of thing. Makes no sense to me. For a crime like that, it should be solitary confinement for life. All right, let's go pay our respects to Mark. I should add, there was one point where Melanie's father came over looking for the girls and trying to figure out what was going on. And a man came around from the back. And this is the backyard. You can see right through the trees. That's the backyard of the house. And he made some excuse that the girls were either at... He made so many different excuses. Either the car broke down. I think that's one he gave to Melanie's mother. He told the father they were at a movie. But anyways, he made up a lie. The father thought it was like a neighbor or something. But it was Richard that greeted him. But that's the backyard right there. about a 30-minute drive over to Hicksburg, Virginia, and this church is actually where Emma's father was the pastor of, and this is where he's buried, right here. But this is where he worked and delivered his sermons, and he's buried out here. And it's really the middle of nowhere. There's not much out here. It's very quiet and very beautiful. And let's take a look at Reverend Mark's final resting place. Oh my goodness. No, Emma is here. Wow. Reverend Mark Allen Niederbrock, pastor, Walker's Presbyterian Church, March 20th, 1959 to September 18th, 2009. Now, this is a marker for her, for Emma. I don't know if it's... it says, in loving memory of my daughter, Emma K. Niederbrock, October 15th, 1992 to September 18th, 2009. Now, this may be a cenotaph, I'm not sure. I'm going to walk through here and see if Debra is here, but no. Wow. So there's Emma's marker. You see these have fallen down here. Somebody was just buried recently, about 2-3 weeks ago. Oh boy. So I'm not sure if Emma is here. These are not going to stay. Yeah. Trying to walk in between here. There we go. Got them up a little bit. Now try to get this one up. It's nice just to put them back up. Oh boy, this one I can't. Oh, there's somebody left a Hershey's chocolate. No, the ground's not going to hold this one right now. It's going to knock over the other ones if I don't leave it on the ground. I'm sorry. Wow. I wasn't expecting. I didn't think Emma... There's nothing listed online for Emma, Debra, and Melanie. Melanie is probably in West Virginia or with her parents or ashes. I'm not sure. I did bring a rock for each victim. And I'll leave these here. So, Emma and Reverend Mark right here. Wow. Now, like I said, it does say in loving memory of. Doesn't necessarily mean that's her grave. I'm not sure. Wow. It is so quiet out here. You could hear a pin drop for a mile. Wow. The amount of damage this guy did. It's Syko Sam. I've seen funeral footage for Reverend Mark, and I believe there was photos of I think Melanie's and I think Debra's, and just to see the distraught family. I'm not gonna put those pictures up, but there you can see them. It's a giant cow making noises over there, and yeah, the amount of damage this guy did. So, like I said, he still has because he wasn't a musician. He was into the internet and coding and all that, and then he wanted to be a rapper. And the guy from the label told him, "No, you're no good." And I listened to some of his stuff. He's no good. Oh God, is he no good? And some horrorcore is good. So I'm not saying horrorcore is not good, but if you're a fan of Syko Sam, if you're a fan of his music, get better taste. If you're a fan of him, you have some reflection to do. I'm not preaching, but come on. He's not someone to look up to at all. And I hope he's still making music, actually, the music that he makes, because if he's surrounded by violent criminals, that's going to really annoy them. It's got to. That's torture. So I hope he's playing in a prison and see what happens. In terms of, well, maybe they'll just, I don't know what I'm saying. I hope he's making music in prison and it's torturing the other prisoners. They get sick of it. God. He had a lot of issues, this kid. A lot of issues. Maybe he's remorseful. Maybe he's getting the help he needs. But 4 people, man. With that blunt force, with that brutal act. Rest in peace, Emma, Melanie, Debra, and Mark. Thanks for watching, everyone. Peace.